Right, here we go then. We are not live in our first My Therapy Network short form interview with Alistair Beverley, the LD Physio.
Hello.
Hi Alistair, how are you?
Yeah, really well, Ben. Thanks really well, Ben. Appreciate the chance to come and have a bit of a chat tonight, and managed to get the daughter and the dogs all quiet. The daughter's in bed and the dogs are apparently quiet for the moment. Hopefully they don't interrupt us. But yeah, doing really well. What about yourself?
Yeah, really well, thanks. A little bit nervous. First interview, and obviously, want to do you justice. So hopefully this all goes well. But yeah, so the big exciting news is that we've got a new course program launching in Liverpool, and thanks so much. You've agreed to, be our first course. So it's a brand new course. What's the name of the course, and what's it all about?
So yeah, let's be guinea pigs for Liverpool. So the course is called Learning Disability for MSK Professionals, a crash course so that you don't. And essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to support MSK professionals of all types, including students. I've had a few people question me on that this week. So students, massage therapists, anybody who may be involved in face-to-face treatment or provision of MSK services, so that you can have a greater understanding of the needs of people with learning disabilities. You can have a lot of the key skills around communication, around the legal framework, and around the understanding of common comorbidities that are associated with learning disability. That means that you can give that person the best treatment that is possible. And that will hopefully have a knock-on effect of improving health equality for a group of people who experience vast health inequality relative to the general population. So it's a small course with hopefully a big ripple effect. That's the plan.
Yeah, I was going to say it's hopefully generate a ripple effect, and I think this is the sort of course that should sell out instantly, because there's nothing like it, as far as I can tell, in the MSK space, and it should be in huge demand. But we need to see how this goes, because I think that people, when they look for a CPD course, what they look for is taping course, and nothing against taping courses, fine. But I mean, if you ask physios, I bet every single physio has been on a taping course. Yeah, I bet no physio.
I haven't, by the way.
Oh, sorry. You have.
I haven't.
Okay, you're the only physio that hasn't been on a taping course. But if you ask a room full of physios and you're not in that room, I bet none of them have been on an LD, learning disabilities course for physiotherapists. Would you disagree with that?
No, certainly not. I know from some of the conferences that I've been to pre-COVID that the areas and the stands that will garner the most attention are the ones with shiny, flashy physical things that you can put on people, and therefore you appear to get an effect, and they cost lots of money, but they're shiny and they seem to garner a great impact. And actually the evidence is suggesting, as we know, that a lot more can be done with our approach to patient care and our rapport building, relationships and communication. And that's hopefully what this course aims to build on. A lot of the skills that we will talk about on this course are not just pertinent to people with learning disabilities. Obviously we will work to improve your understanding of the nature of learning disabilities, but the key approaches and messages that I take home are ones that I apply in all of my practice. And I practice MSK neuro rehab and mainstream services as well. And the skills I have garnered and learned from working with people with learning disabilities are skills that enable me to gain positive outcomes for the people who don't have a learning disability as well.
Yeah, and maybe I'm being a little bit unfair to say no one's been on a learning disability course, because actually people may know you from your session on the Therapy Live, which obviously was a huge conference. Actually, you are breaking into this space, aren't you, really? How did you find, I know you've spoken or you're going to speak at the CSP conference. It's one or the other, isn't it? Or you have done and you're doing an even bigger one.
Going to.
Yeah, okay. So you're going to speak at the CSP conference. You've done Therapy Live. they're pretty big gigs, aren't they? How did you find that?
Yeah, well, my first, I attended Therapy Live last year as a delegate, just to sort of sit and see what was going on, because I have to keep my skills up. So people with learning disabilities have MSK issues in the same way that the general population do. So I have to keep my hand in MSK as well. So it was quite different, because not only was I speaking this year, I sort of, I'm not a very good person at saying I'm quite busy or I can't do that, and ended up being a moderator as well. So it was interesting to see sort of behind the scenes, and obviously many of the people watching this will know that the challenges that were faced by the world outage that happened, or the global outage that happened at the day of Therapy Live, that made things quite stressful behind the scenes. But for me, I think it was a great experience. Obviously they were recorded, so that helped for people who couldn't attend live. And I think I've spoken at length about some feedback that I got as a student, and just coming across as arrogant. And I think that I've not been good at recovering from that. I sort of reel from that 13, 14 years down the line. And so I have to sort of get over myself with all this work that I'm doing, and advocacy work for people who have a learning disability. I need to get over that and get over myself to be able to speak. So first and foremost, it was pretty terrifying. So nerves were a huge part. But after that, once you get into your flow, you get over your first couple of slides, and actually it goes really well. But I think one of the problems was mine was early in the day, so that some people couldn't get on until later. I think Benny, you popped up in the chat on it as well. It was a really fab experience, and I'm now past the point, as you can probably see, of the nervousness about I've got over myself now, and now it's time to sort of put in work. But yeah, nervous first, but it was a fabulous experience, and great to be behind the scenes and seeing how much work goes into that conference as well. It was incredible.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I didn't get to do all of it, but I managed to get to some of the key sessions, yours included, when the internet allowed. But it was a great day. But okay, so let's go on to LD physio a little bit then. I've got a few questions that I've jotted down. So most therapists, a person with learning disabilities comes into their clinic. What do you think is the problem? What do you think are people nervous about? Let's call it nervousness, because maybe it's saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. How do we as physio, how do we get over ourselves a little bit and just get past the fact that someone has a learning disability, and just get on with the job that we need to do for everyone, regardless?
It's really interesting. So I obviously do some work lecturing at universities and undergrad courses, and we take university placement, clinical placement students as well, where I work. And equally, I have a relatively healthy social media following, and all those sort of fields, I get quite a lot of people saying, I know somebody's coming in who has a learning disability, or somebody came in with a learning disability. Can you help me with X, Y, or Z? Ultimately, my advice to a lot of those people is that it's the same. But I think the big challenge that people face is the communication, and the perceived communication barrier, and not knowing how to pitch themselves to that person, even if that person does have a good level of understanding. Now, I know that there are many clinicians out there who do see people with learning disabilities and are just naturally gifted and skilled in their communication, adapting their communication methods. But I think, particularly from seeing it with students, obviously we're there with them on clinical practice, it is initially just getting over the communication. And you see so many students who sit there in a subjective and go, okay, and I go, right, so what I want you to do is just to assess this person, say hello, introduce yourself, I've got a plan for a subjective, off you go. And they sort of go, what do I do now? And you're like, talk to them, say hello, introduce yourself. So there is a real stumbling block for a lot of therapists. And I think some of that comes down to understanding of the needs of the individual. But there is, I think, societally, a reaction to disability that hopefully is starting to be change. I think since 2012, it's been improved for physical disabilities, but it still has a way to go for learning disabilities. Disability isn't that tragic, isn't that sad? And I think that reaction still is embedded amongst society, and I think it's embedded within some clinicians. And I think hopefully through this course we can start to try and get over that, because there will be testimonial from people who have a learning disability who are going to be giving their take on healthcare professionals that were good and bad. And it's a case of, and a lot of it comes down to how people were spoken to and how they were communicated with. So yeah, communication is 101, is ultimately everything.
Yeah. And you've obviously, you work in this area, it's your specialist area. People, I think, are probably afraid of saying the wrong thing, being offensive, and obviously no one wants to do that. Presumably you've got some stories about absolute epic failures, that you've had in this field, and can you share any?
I can actually. Thankfully, not many of them are related to communication. I'm grateful of that. So, and that's not to say aren't I great, but for those who don't know, my older brother had Down syndrome. So, growing up around people with learning disabilities and going to parties and friends, and it was part of childhood. It was part of life. So I think through that you develop a natural repertoire of skills that I haven't really come to value until I've sort of got to the more mature years of my career, if you can call them that, to be able to do that. But yeah, a couple, and I apologise for if anybody.
Hang on, what are these special skills? What are the? Is this sort of like Liam Neeson, your Liam Neeson moment? I'm a physio with a particular set of skills. What?
Well, yeah, pretty much. And if Ben, if you were to come on the course, I might be able to pass on some of those, those tips to you.
Okay, see what you did there. Everyone's a marketing hook.
See, who's the marketeer out of us two, Ben? Come on. So yeah, so a couple of fails, and if anybody's eating, they might want to just mute this for a little bit or skip ahead a couple of minutes. So the first one's not too bad, but working with,
edit this out if it's too disgusting.
Working with somebody with cerebral palsy who had athetoid cerebral palsy. We'll cover that on the course.
Good, and I know what that is, so I definitely need you to cover that on the course.
Fantastic. So that will be covered on the course. And I was just finishing up some hoisting maneuvers with them. So I just got them back in the chair after the therapy session. And ultimately somebody came in and I think it was a cough or a sneeze, and this person had got a startle reflex, which essentially means that this person had uncontrolled movements to their limbs. So when the loud noise happened, their arms went out. I'm a fairly tall guy, and this so happened that wheelchair height and somebody's arm flailing out to the side is not a good height for the Davina McCalls, shall we say. So got absolutely bent over double. Yeah. And I've had a few of those over the years, but that one just stuck in my mind because it hit me absolutely plumb, like eye-wateringly horrific. Now, the person was mortified. Obviously, this was an uncontrolled movement. This person had a good amount of understanding of the world around them and what was happening, but that was just a complete reflexive movement.
I'd say that's more of a patient epic fail. How not to keep your physio on board.
Well, you're going to love this next one then, because this was a fail from my point of view in terms of related to hoisting as well, but in my positioning during a hoist maneuver. And we were hoisting somebody out of the hydrotherapy pool, and we had an overhead tracking hoist. And I'd been supporting them for their hydro session. We'd got them in the sling, we were hoisting them up in the air, and I was supporting them under, just stopping it from swinging from underneath. And at that moment, that person had a rather loose bowel movement, which combined with the water dribbling from the sling just meant that it all came through.
Just trying not to picture it really hard.
It was really bad, and I was just speaking at the time, so it just cascaded down. And yeah. So that was an absolute epic fail. I mean, there's been numerous ones around how I communicate, and there are personality clashes within learning disabilities that, in the same way that not clashes, but you will get on better with some patients than others, and that's the same in mainstream practice as it is with people who learn disabilities. And sometimes that's led to
exactly what I was going to say. This is just like, people will probably be listening to this thinking, yeah, I've got those kind of epic fail stories from patients without learning disability. So basically, you know, everyone's having epic fails in clinics up and down the country all day, every day, and it's something that we shouldn't be. Obviously, we don't want epic fails to happen. Don't go out there and try and have epic fails, but they happen to everyone, and it's not something we need to be particularly worried about with people with a learning disability, is it?
Completely. And actually, it's interesting, Ben. I think you and I should maybe start on like an epic fails physio podcast where people can anonymously declare their epic fails and normalize failure. No, you don't have to share yours.
I'm not sharing mine. I'll share other people's.
Fair dues. Fair dues.
Okay, listen. I promise you I'll try and keep this to 20 minutes. Probably not going to achieve that already, but let's move on. So we've hit the epic fails. What are your highlights of working as an LD specialist physio? What are the, come on, sell it to us.
Do you know what? For me, I get the biggest kick of ice breaking, and ice breaking isn't just within learning disabilities. It's not something that you can do in a simple interaction, a quick interaction. It's not something that you may do on the first session. It may take a few sessions to ice break for somebody, and somebody to be genuinely comfortable in your company. And for me, there's a couple of cases, but one stands out of a young gentleman who was had a rare condition called Williams syndrome, and he did not want to engage in physiotherapy. Did not want to engage, and this was only about 5 years ago. So I've been working in the area, the field. I hate that phrase, but working with people who learn disabilities for a long time. So I wasn't a greenhorn, and we spent 6 months, twice a week, sat on the floor with him saying, I don't want to. Obviously not to an abusive level, he was free to leave, and we chatted about other things. But as soon as I mentioned, should we go through and do some exercise? I don't want to. So then we come back to conversation. And for me, the big breakthrough that happened with that young man was I entered his world. And he had a big thing for, his big interest was making up fantasy universes. So this isn't just like like World of Warcraft sort of stuff. He would make up worlds. And so as we spent time chatting, I learned more about him, and I was like, okay, so what about if we create a fantasy universe in our heads together? And he'd pick out the names, and then we'd go on a quest. And actually, I could see him sort of going, okay. And it ended up with us on the trampoline, throwing gym balls on and off the trampoline at each other, pretending they were planets. And I had a character that was called the Gleidenschmitzen, I think. And his was a different character, and we'd go on valiant quests. And actually from that, you can get him kicking, single leg balance, squats, sit to stand. And he was a person who needed to work on muscle strength and bone density. So we needed him to be active. So sitting on the floor wasn't the best thing. And it really took that psychological shift from me to go, look, I need you to do this, to actually, okay, I've run out of ideas, and to be honest, with hindsight, it's something I now try and do earlier, is to try and find out what's important to that person and connect with them on that level. So it's also almost a bit of a failure at the start, but connection is really the thing that it really sort of gets my juices flowing. There was another, okay, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, you've just reminded me of a patient that I had in doing some outpatient sort of neuro MSK type bit of a crossover clinic in Australia. And I had a lady who had learning disabilities, and her thing was golf. And we were basically getting nowhere with any kind of conventional exercise. That's what she was coming in for, for basically maintaining her fitness. And in the end, what we settled on, we would literally play golf around the department and combine it with exercise. And we used to have just once a week, she would come in and we'd play golf around the gym in the department with a walking stick turned up the wrong way and some softballs. And I think that is the cool thing about working with people with learning disabilities and all sorts of just, you know, unusual presentation, people that think differently, if you like, is that you can just be so creative and just do interesting different things that other people wouldn't click for other people. Other people might just think what's this all about? But it's you have to change the way you think and be really flexible, I guess.
And that creativity is probably is the second thing that really, you know, connections, the big thing that gets me going. But on what keeps me going on a day-to-day level is, because obviously you're not going to have those hallelujah moments with everybody or every single day, but being creative with my exercise prescription. You know, and as I said, when we take students, they're like, oh my, you know, one of the things they think they're going to come and learn disabilities and learn about Down syndrome and autism and cerebral palsy, and actually they come away from, actually I've got a different view of disability and my exercise prescription skills are now through the roof, and I can find 25 different ways of gaining inner range quads instead of this classic, you know, stick it over a towel on a plinth, you know.
Hang on, what exercise?
So that is
I must have missed that exercise. Sorry, what was that again? Rolled up towel on a plinth. I don't think anyone knows what you're talking about, mate.
Oh, fair. Just all right, clams then. We'll go for clams then, shall we? That's been debated quite a lot recently.
So let's finish up with a question about the course, because, you know, people hopefully listening to this are interested in coming on an LD physio course. It's a new course. You're building it from scratch. Can you give us a bit of an idea of how you're constructing it? What sort of sessions you've got planned broadly? I know, you know, obviously you're not going to teach the course today, just to give people a flavour of what you're covering.
So yeah, I mean, I've as I've mentioned, I work with people with learning disabilities and also with mainstream MSK and a sporting side of things as well. So I think I've taken conversations that I've had with MSK professionals, both personally and professionally, along with what students have asked us when on clinical placement, what they like to know, and common questions that they ask, and try to put all that together in a course that is holistic and is also good at keeping people out of prison. Because one of the big things that I think that physios are unaware of is when seeing people with learning disability, there are some key pieces of law that we need to be aware of, a couple of pertinent pieces of legislation that physios need to be aware of that aren't just relevant to learning disabilities. But I don't think, and I know from my experience at undergraduate education, are not discussed and not necessarily people aware of, and actually people could be unknowingly in breach of the law. But ultimately, as you know, it's not just going to be law and legislation, because what we've done is I've taken the questions that I've been asked over the 13 years of specialism, 14 years of specialism, by clinicians on social media, by friends, by MSK therapists, and by students, and tried to combine that together with an underpinning of the morphology of common learning disability conditions, and also meld that together with how we can treat people holistically within practice, but again, not just make that relevant to learning disability. So I'll hammer this point home all day. If you come on this course, it's not just going to be, you're not just going to come away with, okay, the 3 people I may see in my career who have Down syndrome. You're going to come away with a set of skills and to add to your toolbox, if you use that reference, that are applicable to every single person that you will see, and approaches to sessions and approaches to rapport building and ice breaking that you can use with every single person you'll be working at. And you'll also be able to look at exercise prescription differently, I hope.
And for people that are, you know, in physio departments or private physio clinics, I mean, the thing that I'm excited about is I'm just in the process of setting up a private clinic, and I want to try and do it right, you know, and get things in place that make it friendly, you know, for people with learning disabilities. So, you know, I know you're planning to cover a little bit of clinic logistical setup and a bit of section on that as well, which I think will be really useful for people. Completely.
And actually there will be something further on from that where we can look at how we can, some more bespoke tailor-made work for individual clinics who really want to, push this forward and make their clinics truly accessible. So yeah, clinic setup. And if people who do come to the course want to bring, photos of their clinic, and maybe we have a section where we talk about that, and talk about individual clinics and how you can make those more accessible and welcoming to people who have a learning disability.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, learning disabilities for MSK professionals, a crash course so you don't, 12th of February in Liverpool. And do you know what? I really hope that this is, like we said at the beginning, the ripple effect, the beginning of, a great course, which hopefully will start cropping up, all over the UK as different people get to hear of you. And I really hope it takes off for you. So we've gone well over the plan, which was to try and do a quick, snappy 20-minute, but, it's great having a chat to you, mate. And yeah, I look forward to interacting with you more on Twitter and everything else in the lead up to this.
Thank you very much, Ben. I appreciate your time. And yeah, guys, if you want to go to my-therapynetwork.com, all the booking information will be on there.
Yeah, we'll put some links on that to the interview today. Cheers, mate. Okay, thanks for your time. Speak to you soon.
Thanks, Ben. Bye.